BFM 89.9, good morning. I'm Nadia Hassan and welcome to your morning headlines. Just to give you a brief overview of what we have on today, Exco, underwear, Mars, and Zeus. All caught up? Let's go. So basically, NST talks about power shift in Pakatan. Of course, today is the day that newly minted MB Azmin Ali will pick his Exco members. And all the papers, regardless, have actually put out a whole bunch of names. They talk about people who are close to him. They talk about people who stood by him. They talk about those who stood against him. And NST goes with the fact that they think that this is his chance. Of course, it's the biggest chance he has in order to step out of Mentor Anwar's shadow. Hence why the power shift title. But the one thing that most people seem to concur is that one Aziza is not going to be there. I mean, that is the one prevailing theme that everybody seems to agree on. And now, although Berita Harian also has the same kind of headlines in the same fetching shade of orange, by the way, courtesy of Tropicana, the one thing that I found interesting, saying that she was not going to be in the list, maybe ahead of a GLC. Now, that is a very, very interesting point. And Sina and Utosan are continuing their game of being completely different from each other by going with siapa pilihan Azmin. Who is Azmin's choice? And they, of course, give all the pictures and who they think will. But Utosan goes with Azmin ikuti siapa. So whose lead is it that Azmin is following? Clearly fleshing out the hint that maybe his choices or the choices he makes are not entirely his own. Star has an exclusive while they move away, at least from the politics, talking about legal but lethal. 3,000 hectares of Lesung Permanent Reserve Forest are being cleared for what will be eventually timber plantation sites. Although the Pahang Forestry actually says, you know, it's legal, they're allowed to do it. But of course, there's all the concerns about the wildlife, elephants, and critically endangered tigers. Yes, we all need progress, but this, destroying your green lung, is that really the way it's supposed to be? Timber has already been as controversial. This, however, is going to tip it over. I'm sure this is going to be debated on for days to come, so good for the staff for bringing that up, other than just Law and Order SVU headlines, right? And for the guys who are actually doing this, your judges you. Judges you. The Sun also goes on a caring track talking about beware of Zeus. No, don't be scared of ancient Greek gods. It's talking about a virus named Zeus that's actually infecting your smartphones and phablets or tablets, depending on which one you have at the moment. And basically what happens is, for all the millions of us who still do banking on our phones, or at least the ones who start to do banking on the phones and apps and convenience, it leaves them vulnerable to the financial data being exploited. You know, it seems that every other week we seem to see story of hackers hacking into the randomness of all things. This is another thing to be worried about. So you have to be sure of your financial information. Now let's move on to the really interesting stuff, talking about perverted mask in courthouse. Malay Mail goes with a mightily huge picture of men with their heads stuffed up their pants, talking about how these are the customs officer. Remember, there was a huge raid. They're all being brought to court to charge, and all of them clearly don't want their faces shown. So they all put all their underwears and tied knots around their head so as to make sure that they are not identified, although their names, of course, are made public. You know, I brought up the question today also whether or not they actually have an expectation of privacy, but regardless, they obviously don't want their mugs splashed everywhere, but you can at least see what kind of brand and underwear they actually put on. We finished the portion of the papers as always with Harian Metro. Jutuan Tali Gantong. Tali Gantong is our words of the day. It's basically Hangman's News, talking about how these guys obviously made a mint doing a Breaking Bad Walter White thing. But in the end, you know what? The long arm of the law caught up with them eventually. At least they probably didn't have a brother-in-law who had no idea that he was running a meth lab. So one final thing, of course, is India wins the space race to Mars. Let's not forget in the 1950s and 60s, there was this huge race between the Americans and the Russians as to who would actually get to space first. Apparently in Asia, there has been one between the two big superpowers, which is China and India. And obviously, India pipped China to the post. And here's a little interesting fact which you may have missed this morning, but it actually cost the Indians $74 million to send the probe into space. It cost $110 million to shoot Gravity, to spin Sandra Bullock around on a green screen. Think about that for cost comparison. But of course, it's a great achievement, and whether or not we one day as Malaysians will go there instead of just sending people out there on other people's craft is still an aspiration and still a dream. Please, if you have time, check out our other videos, 89.9 seconds, Sekilas, Kupas, and of course, please do leave comments if you have anything to talk about below. Please be nice. That's it for me. I'm Nadia Hassan, and this has been your morning headlines on BFM 89.9, ground control to Major Top. See you next week.